Hello and welcome. My name is Richard Marnell. I work in the Los Angeles office of Viking, and I'm part of the marketing team. I am here to introduce us to Foodie Friday. Foodie Friday is a new episode that we'll be doing on Viking.TV, Fridays going forward, and I have the great pleasure to welcome you to my hometown, Boston. We're on a promenade not far from where I proposed to my wonderful wife 24 years ago, looking out over the city. And I am going to have the joy of taking you on a little bit of a food journey into my childhood and into the Thanksgiving holiday. We will be visiting the Mayflower, the vessel that the Pilgrims sailed down on, the English village in Plymouth, as well as Patuxet, the home of the indigenous individuals that lived there during the time. We will be visiting Peacefield, the home of John Adams and John Quincy Adams. And given that it is now the day after Thanksgiving, we are going to visit a turkey farm a few short miles south of here called Bongi's. Then we will get to visit with my mom and my dad in their home. And my mom is going to take us through how to stretch a meal the day after Thanksgiving when you don't know how many people are going to show up. For dessert, it is a little bit different. We are going to go to a place of my youth, and we are going to get penny candy from the penny candy counter at Uncle Bill's. Now, this is a little bit of an atypical tour of Boston. Most of you, when you visit, you will be coming here with Viking, hopefully, on our Eastern Seaboard Explorer, which essentially comes from Montreal in the north, comes through the St. Lawrence River, down around through Halifax, Prince Edward Island, into Massachusetts, into Boston Harbor. From Boston Harbor, it goes out into Cape Cod Bay, near where the Pilgrims were, through the Cape Cod Canal. It is going to be an exceptional day that we get to spend together, and I really look forward to sharing my hometown with all of you, and look forward to seeing you on Viking TV again as we move forward in time. And most importantly, I look forward to seeing you on board. We are now in Plymouth Harbor, and we have the Mayflower replica behind us. And what I wanted to do was just bring this back to Viking a little bit. So the Pilgrims, as we know, sailed from England into Plymouth Harbor in 1620. Additionally, from what we've been able to figure out historically, one of the Mayflower's earliest sailings, in fact, was to Norway, in which it went essentially from England into Bergen in 1609 to deliver supplies. Now, the intrepid Pilgrims did not leave for another 11 years, almost 400 years to the day that we are standing here today. And we're extremely fortunate today because we have with us Kate Sheehan, and she's going to tell us about the 4 museums of the Plymouth Patuxet group. Kate.
Thank you, Rich. So yes, Mayflower II is just one of the major exhibits of Plymouth Patuxet museums. We also have the 17th century English village, and the English village is where people will experience a recreation of the Plymouth colony in the early 1620s. And that's where people are familiar with seeing pilgrims in costume. It's really a lot of fun, and it's also such a historically important experience. We also have the Wampanoag home site, and that is on historic Patuxet. So the Patuxet in our name refers to the original Wampanoag homeland, and Wampanoag, of course, were essential to their survival over that first year. The third of our exhibits and our museums is the Plymouth Grist Mill, and that is a reproduction of a 1636 mill that was started by John Jenny, one of the Pilgrims, and that was where milling occurred for the community. And then, of course, here we are at Mayflower II, and Mayflower was built in 1955 in Brixham, England. It is a full-scale reproduction based on thorough research at over 60 years old, the ship really needed a little bit of a facelift. And so for the last nearly 5 years, we've been undertaking a massive restoration of this historic vessel.
Tell us about the passengers. How many individuals were on board and what was it like for them?
Life aboard the original Mayflower for the passengers would have been quite interesting. When you visit the ship, you really get a sense of how cramped it might have been on what was really a merchant vessel. This was not meant for passengers. So you would have 102 people on the 'tween decks. There were also, some farm animals with them. There were 2 babies born aboard the ship. One of the sailors died during the voyage. So it was certainly not an easy passage. And it was also late in the year. They arrived off of Cape Cod on early November 9th, I believe. And on November 11th, the Mayflower Compact was signed off of what we think was off of Cape Cod, likely Provincetown, near Provincetown Harbor. And that compact was the first civil body politic in this country. So even though the United States was not yet formed, it really is one of the foundational documents that we believe influenced the Declaration of Independence.
For our Viking guest, the journey that most parallels the Pilgrim's Path is our itinerary that is the Wake of the Vikings. And that goes from Bergen, Norway, all the way into Montreal at about approximately the same time. So we hope you've enjoyed your time here at the Mayflower. I know it's been wonderful for me. The last time I was here, I believe, was probably 6th or 7th grade. And I think this is my 4th field trip to this wonderful historic site. And we're looking forward to showing you the English Village and the Patuxet home site. So we'll be seeing you there in a few moments. Hello, we are now at the English Village recreation of Plymouth, what it would have been like 400 years ago. And we're very fortunate to be joined by Kathy Rudder, who is the museum's program director. Thank you very much, Kathy, and welcome.
Thanks for having me. So this is the 17th century English village here at Plymouth Patuxet. It's one of our 2 main living history sites, and this recreates what one of the main streets in downtown Plymouth would have looked like in the year 1627.
What were the foods that they would have eaten back then?
Well, we're here in the fall now, and so that is a time with a lot of migratory birds, waterfowl in particular, ducks and geese. The passenger pigeon would have been huge, and things grown in the garden here would have been seeds brought from England, such as root vegetables this time of year, cold season greens like lettuce or spinach. And as far as foods at that first Thanksgiving feast, we know that there was enough fowl to feed about 50 people for almost a week. So that could have been any of those ducks, geese, pigeons, turkeys, certainly quails as well, possibly some shellfish, and corn is, of course, the main crop. And that would be the multicolored Indian corn that we decorate our houses with now in the fall, which can be eaten fresh, and Wampanoag people certainly do that. But in both English and Wampanoag culture, it's of a lot of value dried, because then you can grind it by hand in a mortar and pestle to make your cornmeal and make your grits for boiling, sort of like into an oatmeal. Our Wampanoag home site of historic Patuxet recreates a one-family site right next door to the English village in the 17th century.
One last question. Could you tell us about how the Mayflower Compact influenced living in the village?
Oh, absolutely. The Mayflower Compact is the document that actually gives the right for all of this to exist. When Mayflower originally landed in New England, it was not meant to be in New England at all. This settlement was meant to be built initially at the western bank of the Hudson River, modern-day New Jersey. And so the Mayflower Compact establishes order in New England.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. What a wonderful place. Welcome to Duxbury, Massachusetts. When I was asked to do Foodie Friday featuring Thanksgiving leftovers, Bongi's came to mind. It has been here for the better part of 50 years, and we are incredibly fortunate to be joined to get a history of Bongi's from a third-generation Buongiorno.
Hello, I'm Tom Pierce, third-generation Bongi. Bongi is short for Buongiorno. Both my grandparents, immigrants from Italy. The farm was originally a chicken farm up until the late 1940s when they switched over to turkeys. In my grandfather's ambition to evolve the business, he started roasting turkeys and selling roasted turkeys, and then they started making turkey pot pies. Through the 60s, this road that we're on here, Route 53, was the main road to Cape Cod. So all the Cape Cod traffic went right by our store here. And my grandfather would get all the traffic going to the Cape on Friday afternoons, and then he'd get them all going back on Saturday evenings.
What's your most popular dish?
In the fall and the wintertime, it's turkey pot pie season. We sell lots of turkey pot pies. We make pies 5 days a week. I've got a crew of 7 or 8 people. That's all they do is make turkey pot pies. The turkey pot pie business, it was mostly a seasonal thing the first couple of years, but then that really helped this business grow, and it's been growing since. It's unbelievable. And obviously the turkey sandwich is a staple year-round. We have a thriving business in just the turkey sandwiches. We sell 100 turkey sandwiches or 200 turkey sandwiches every day just to customers passing by or workers in the area, landscapers. And this is definitely the cranberry capital of the United States. And Ocean Spray is a big part of our sandwiches.
Ready to go? Bag them up and serve them.
Hello, Richard. How are
Hello,
you?
Mom. I'm great.
Good to see you.
You have a new sign. What does it mean?
Oh, 100,000 welcomes. Do you want to come in?
I'd love to.
All right, we are in the kitchen of my mom. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Rich.
How are you?
I am fine. Good.
And we are doing a what to do with leftovers the day after Thanksgiving. So my mom is going to take us through what to do with leftovers. Thanksgiving was always a very, very big holiday in our family. Mom, you're from how many?
I am from a family of 7. I am the oldest of 7.
And
my husband is the middle son of the 5. So we all both came from big families, and the holidays were always family.
What are you going to take us through?
All right. In Quincy, where we lived, we had a parade the Sunday after Thanksgiving. So we never knew how many people were coming and how many were staying. So I always needed a meal that I could stretch. So you take the bones of a chicken or a turkey or a ham, and if you boil it, you've got a meal. So I always took the turkey bones and decided that would be our meal, and we'd go from there. We'd have turkey soup on Sunday with Santa Claus coming. And I've done some preliminary. I've cheated a little because you have a few things to do the day before. So we have taken bones from a carcass and we've boiled them. And needless to say, this is the end result of the bones from the turkey. All right, I have picked the bones and gotten the meat off of most of them. I did save a turkey leg to pick some meat. I started, like I say, I've done a little cheating, so I started picking some meat off the legs to throw in the soup. The white meat's already been done. So something I forgot to say, with the bones, I do put in an onion, celery, a carrot, a bay leaf, any seasonings I have. And I've already dump the bones, needless to say. There is the meat from the leg, and here is the meat from the bones. So I got plenty of meat for my soup. And let me wash my hands before I unpack all of this. I do use my own sage, and I put some in when I boil the bones. Now, I'd like you to look in the pot, because this is why I boil the bones. I got to skim the fat off of there before I add the vegetables. So I just take everything and pour it. And this will eliminate all the fats. And with that, the fat stays in the colander and I have my soup. So with that, now I add my seasonings. I have sage, which I grew this summer. And we will just...
You really grew sage this summer?
Oh, I did.
You planned far in advance for this.
No, I didn't, Rich. I have an small herb garden out in the back deck. I have oregano, I have sage, I have basil, I make my own pesto. So, anyway, we will put some homemade sage.
Were you this good of a cook when I was a kid?
Richard. No, the herbs have come about because of your father. He is celiac, and celiac is a pretty boring thing if you don't flavor things. So you put a couple of teaspoons of sage, and then I want some thyme. All right. So anything I make is celiac, and there you go. Now, I have pre-cut carrots. Needless to say, I'm not making this for an enormous group. I am dumping cut carrots, onions that have been peeled.
You're gonna put them in, you're putting them in whole?
I am putting them in. They're only tiny, and everything will boil for about a half hour. And flavor the soup as well. And the celery. The only thing with the celery, I do string it. If you don't, you could bite into a piece of celery and get 1,000 strings. So I have done all my celery and strung it. So we have celery. And we even use the celery leaves. Eventually, we will put in some parsley, but we use the inside of the celery. I hope you're getting all of this, Rich.
It's fantastic. Keep rolling.
All right. Okay. There. So I'm going to put anything that isn't cut back in because I have plenty of vegetables all cut. There. All right. Now I put the meat in, which I left a bone. Deary. Thank goodness I caught that. And white and dark meat. And I boil it for a half hour, and your soup is made. That's all you need. All right. Turn the stove on. I'm going in the back. And boil my soup for about a half hour. That's it. And if you need any more seasoning, I do use a bouillon cube with chicken because chicken is like a small turkey. It's very easy, very flavorful. So we'll taste it after it boils for a half hour. Soup is done. It's the easiest meal ever.
All right, we're back watching our pot boil, and then once it's ready, we will plate and serve and enjoy it with some cornbread. But Mom, you were just saying while we were cleaning the kitchen a bit, about your experience with our videos and Viking.TV.
Oh, Viking.TV has been a godsend. There's nothing on television, and if you want to go in and just listen to something that isn't involved in the worldly problems, Karina does such a fantastic job interviewing, and I hope to heaven no one ever compares this to one of Karina's episodes, because I admire her so much. She's done a fabulous, fabulous job.
All right, we're back in the kitchen, and how are things going?
Things are going good. So that the rice doesn't clump, I wait and add it as it's boiling. And needless to say, the soup is boiling, looks absolutely delicious.
Smells wonderful.
And I'm going to add the rice. And then we let it boil for about 20 minutes, and all will be ready to serve. And that smells like Thanksgiving again.
So tell us about the soup and the cornbread.
In addition to the soup, you always make a side for a filler. In case someone doesn't want the soup, they can at least. So I always have a gluten-free cornbread. But to add more flavor to it, I put cranberries because they're so abundant at this time of year. It's a great thing to have for flavor. And like I say, gluten-free needs all the flavoring you can do.
So you were saying about the cornbread, and I remember as a kid going to the grist mill where they would grind the corn.
Yeah. Down at Sandwich on Cape Cod in Massachusetts in the summertime, we'd bring the kids over, and they'd take corn kernels and put it in this big grist mill, this big enormous stone, and they'd grind it, and we'd buy our corn. We always had cornmeal to bring home from the Cape, and we saved it. We kept it in the freezer, and I made cornbread.
And then with the cranberry bogs, tell us how they harvest the cranberries.
How they harvest? Well, they flood the bogs. The cranberries grow in sandy soil, and what they do around this time, they just fill all the bogs with water. The cranberries float to the top, and they come along with a grater, and they scoop the cranberries. It's got like this, and they'd scoop all the cranberries.
So then, Dad, in the winter when the bogs froze over, what would we do on the bogs?
That's where we did skating. That was our favorite spot because it was just perfect for ice skating.
Perfect place.
Pond skating.
Yeah, we
it was
did pond skating on the bogs.
Yeah.
And it was always a safe place because if the ice was too thin and you fell through, the bogs were only no more than 2 feet deep.
Which is so true. So it was a fun utilizing everything.
Yeah, and it was all local.
Yes, it was. So we want to wish everyone and hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving. We did, and we hope you can do it next year with your family. Soup is a good stretcher.
We are now at Peacefield. This is one of my favorite places in the world to visit, and a place that I'll often return to when I'm home visiting. It's a mere 1.5 miles from where I grew up. This is the family home of the Adams family, and they lived here from circa 1787 until the Adams family gifted it to the United States government in 1946. John and Abigail Adams lived here from 1787 during Revolutionary War years, and then his son John Quincy Adams and wife Louisa lived here sometimes after John and Abigail's passing. The Peacefield home is essentially 40 acres of orchards, and there's apples falling from the sky as we tape this, and fields. It houses a stone library, and this was built after John Quincy Adams, but commissioned by him. and it houses 12,000 artifacts, including many of the letters of John Adams. And then the home, Peacefield, that has been featured in the HBO series on John Adams' life. It is an absolutely stunning grounds, and as you can see, there is a beautiful garden and some wonderful old trees. John Quincy Adams actually has said, "I cannot bring myself to take much interest in flowers because they pass off and perish, leaving nothing behind. But the trees," and several of these were planted by him and his wife and their children, "which last 100 years, hence will bear delicious fruit or afford shelter and shade after the ages of men, these yield me delight." He spoke those words in 1835. As a child, I have been here again. Yes, this is one of the wonderful things about growing up in Boston. You get to go to the Old North Church. You get to go to Paul Revere's house. You get to visit the site of the Boston Massacre. You get to come to Peacefield, the John Adams and John Quincy Adams home. Go into the Stone Library. We also got to see their birthplaces, which were right down the street from us here in Quincy. American history, particularly American Revolutionary history, becomes very, very central to you as a child. And in being able to be around so much history, you don't truly appreciate it till, frankly, you step away from it. I had lost an appreciation until I came back as an adult. Now, this is not necessarily what you would consider to be one of the top 10 sites that you would visit while in Boston. But if you've done Faneuil Hall and you've done the inner city iconic destinations, Peacefield, the John Adams Historical Site, and the homesteads are a mere probably about 12 to 15 miles outside of the city. Not a great distance whatsoever. And an absolutely fantastic place to come and walk the gardens. It is a truly stunning destination. Hello again. We are along the Cape Cod Canal. The Cape Cod Canal is part of the Intercoastal Waterway. It is under the responsibility of the Army Corps of Engineers. It was originally conceived way back by one of the original pilgrims, Miles Standish, in 1623. We have the great pleasure of being joined today by two prior Viking guests. They happen to have been on the first trip of the Viking Star to the United States. And it came from Montreal, through Boston, through the Cape Cod Canal, all the way down to New York. And they also happen to be my parents. Their grandchildren affectionately call them Graham and Gampa, and they will be joining us now. Graham and Gampa, Mom and Dad, thank you for joining us on the canal. So we'd love to hear about your trip. You started in Montreal?
We did start in Montreal and went on to Quebec, and then we went up the St. Lawrence Seaway around Prince Edward Island. And needless to say, we stopped a few times. That part of the trip was like being on a river cruise in that we never lost sight of land, and it was great. From Prince Edward Island, we went down into Boston, so it was pretty exciting.
And it brought back an awful lot of memories. Alongside the canal is where we used to bike with the kids. I don't think we've been down this part of the Cape in 10 years. Just coming over the bridge today, it brought back a lot of great memories. And part of it was being on the Viking ship, and it was to see from actually the middle of the canal all the spots. I could tell other people on the boat, more details than they normally would get. I really think any of your customers would appreciate this part of the United States. I know we're also looking forward to 22. It's going to be on the Mississippi, and we've already booked it. It's something very special because, we've always enjoyed Viking, and it's a part of our United States that we never really visited. You're either on a plane going on the West Coast or vice versa, and back and forth on the East Coast, but in between there's a whole section of the United States that I never visited, and we look forward to that part of the trip when it comes around in 2022.
All right, tell us about your experience with the crew as you sailed into New York for the first time.
That was really funny. They come out of the woodwork to see the Statue of Liberty, and they were crowded on the port side of the ship, and they were taking pictures, and that they looked so excited to be coming into New York Harbor. And of course they had the fire boats, and those, we had quite a welcome there, as we did later on when we come into Boston. They treated us like royalty, which Vikings got a little bit of that. And of course the clientele, they're mostly our age, and you have a lot of things in common, talking about your grandchildren and stuff. It's just a unique experience. Prior to Viking, we had been on some of the mega ships, and it just wasn't the same. We didn't need 8 bars and all sorts of entertainment. There was always something cultural to do to keep you busy and to learn something. You're never too old
To travel.
Welcome to the dessert segment of Foodie Friday. As with all of us, there are certain places that get into your soul. I have been coming here since I was 4 years old. I'm 54 now. The Silver Lounge and Uncle Bill's Country Store is an absolute institution in West Falmouth. When I was a kid, my parents had a cottage about 2 miles from here that I shared with my cousins. And my parents would fill our pockets with quarters and allow us to hike out the backyard of the cottage and come through the woods along the railroad tracks to Uncle Bill's Country Store. And we always had to remember to save enough money to call our parents to pick us up. There used to be a payphone in front of the establishment. We would get as much penny candy as change as we had, and we would sit here for hours on end. What a wonderful journey it was. And whenever I'm in Boston, we are about 70 miles from Boston, I always make a pilgrimage. Today, we have the wonderful pleasure of being joined by the owner, Rich Haupt. So Rich, if you wouldn't mind joining us, thank you so much.
Good morning, my name is Richard Haupt. I'm the owner of the Country Store and Silver Lounge Restaurant. It started out as a small little house. It's been added on to 6 times. Uncle Bill's was added on to actually not even to be a country store. The original owner of the building, Bill Weiner, opened it up to be a deli butcher's market.
We are now inside Uncle Bill's Country Store, and we are joined by Jane Crowbar. We're going to pick out a variety of candy after Jane tells us a little bit about the people that come into the penny candy counter.
Well, we've certainly had a lot of people over the years, and I hear stories of how they did it as a child, they brought their children in, and now we have their grandchildren.
What's wonderful about coming here is the candy assortment hasn't changed.
We have the old-fashioned root beer barrels, we have the atomic fireballs, jawbreakers, we've got the Smarties Pops, we've got the Crystal Pops, and then these are special favorites, the buttons, So we've got the button paper strips, and then we've got the candy necklaces.
Oh, the wax lips.
Wax lips.
Oh my gosh.
We've got the wax nips. We've got the wax mustaches, sugar daddies, gold coins, candy bars, and we've got our old-fashioned saltwater taffy. And people like to come to the counter and mix and match. We sell it by the piece. It's 10 cents a piece, and some of the items listed are a little cheaper.
Now we're going to pretend like I'm 6 years old and I have 4 quarters, and we're going to see what it's like back in the day and how much patience the folks behind the counter have to have. So, can I have 4 malted milk balls, please? 1 Smartie. Then can I have 3 bullseyes? How much money do I have left?
You have 20 cents left.
I have 20 cents left. Can I have 2 bitter honeys?
Sure. You just spent $1.
I'm done. Thank you so much. And it was a pleasure having you. Thank you for being with us on this episode of Viking.TV. It's been a joy to host this. Food is something that is special and cherished by all of us. And by me, as I am sure by many, when one thinks of food, one thinks of family, and one thinks of what really connects them back when they were young, and what was unique about where they grew up. I mean, these are all experiences that connected me back to my past and my childhood, and I hope that during these most difficult times that we all have the chance to visit with our families and our loved ones. Choke up moment and say, I love you.